Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to be learning street directions. Street directions. And let's get started. First of all, I'm going to draw these out for you. This means turn left. And this means turn right. Moving on to my next section is go straight ahead. I'm going to go ahead and draw these out for you. This means to go past. Moving on to my next one. Here's a street, and this means to go across or cross. Oops, sorry about that. This means in the corner or at the corner of. Moving on to my next one is this. Next to. And if I want to give you an example, A is next to B. Moving on, you also have opposite and B. You could say opposite. And if I wanted to give you an example of that, you could say A is opposite. Sorry about that. A is at the opposite of B. Moving on to our next one is this. You have A, B, or C, and B here is between of. You could say B building is between A and C. Right, so let's go ahead and go to the beginning to review these. This means to turn left, turning left. This means to turn right, go straight ahead, to go past, to go across or cross, in the corner or at the corner of, next to and our example here is A is next to B. You have opposite, which is A is at the opposite of B. And finally, you have between, or between of, and that is B building is between A and C. Now, we're moving on to our next section, which is questions you can ask about directions. Questions you can ask about directions. This is our next section. For example, if I want to go up to someone and ask them this question, I would say, can you please tell me how I can get to Oxford Street? Now this is a question. You could say, can you please tell me how I can get to Oxford Street? Our next question is going to be, where, I'm going to go ahead and color code these for you, where is the nearest supermarket? Sorry about that. Nearest supermarket. Moving on to my next question, you can say, I'm going to color code this for you as well. How can I get to the local supermarket? I'm going to go ahead and underline these for you. This is important. How can I get to the is the basis of our question, and that is, how can I get to the local supermarket? Also, another question you could ask, how do I get to the post office? You could say, how do I get to the post office? Moving on to our next question. What is the best way to get to your house? I'm going to go ahead and underline this. What is the best way to get to your house? That is also a question that we can use. By using these questions, we could ask for directions. For example, when you say, can you please tell me how I can get to Oxford Street? You could also say, where is the nearest supermarket, or wherever you are planning to ask. You could also say, how can I get to the local supermarket? Or you could say, how do I get to the post office? And finally, what is the best way to get to your house? You could use what is the best way to get to your blank, 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 wherever you're trying to go. Now, moving on to our next section, and that is how to give directions to someone else. How to give directions to someone else. Well, let's get started. In the pages before, we said I gave you this figure, and that meant go straight. And if you want to use this in a sentence, you could say go straight. Oops, sorry about that. Go straight till you see the hospital. You could say go straight till you see the hospital. Moving on to our next part. I gave you this figure, meaning to go left. And if you want to use this in a sentence, you can say turn left when you see the market. Moving on to our next part, I gave you this figure, which was turn right. And you could say, if you want to use this in a sentence, you could say turn right until the post office you could say turn right until the post office. The door number is 63. Now, these are the basic phrases used to give directions to someone else. You could say go straight, go left, or turn left, or you could say turn right. Now, moving on to our next part, I gave you a figure like this, and this was cross. And if you wanted to use this in a sentence, you could say cross the road and keep going 30 meters. You can say cross the road and keep going 30 meters if you want to use this in a sentence. Now, moving on to our next part. I gave you a figure like this, as I recall, and this was opposite. And if you want to use this in a sentence, you could say the hospital is opposite of the park. You could use opposite in a sentence like this. Now, moving on to our next part. you could I gave you a figure like this, as I recall, and this was next or next to or next to. You could say, oops, sorry about that. You could say the house is next to the market. Now, moving on to our next section, our next part is between. I give you a figure. I remember giving you a figure like this. Let me go ahead and draw this out for you. And this meant between. Between. And I could say the market is between the post office and the police station. Now, moving to our next part, I remember giving you, whoops, sorry about that. I remember giving you something like this here. And for this, it was corner of, and you could say, oops, sorry about that. You could say the bookstore is at the corner of the street. Now, moving on to my next part. Is actually, I'm going to give you an example. You could, sorry about that. For this, you could also say just, let me go ahead and mark that for you. For that, you could also say just around the corner of the supermarket. Now,